Hey everybody, my name is SPAZ and I'm a CD junkie. On this episode of CD Junkie, I'm going to be discussing a band that we all can agree on, a band that we all love. Whether you're an FM rock fan, an AM radio fan, top 40, new wave, power pop, everybody has a favorite Cars song. That's right, I'm talking about the Cars. And in tribute to the late Ric Ocasek, I am dedicating this episode to him and, of course, to Ben Orr, who passed away in 2000. Anyway, I like to start off the videos and tell people how I got into the bands that I'm going to talk about. And, of course, I got into this band the same way that you did. I got into this band by hearing a song on the radio, by going, what is that? I heard just what I needed. I heard My Best Friend's Girl, both great pop songs. They were played on AM, they were played on FM. You would go into a record store, they'd be playing there. Of course, I am talking about their 1978 debut album, self-titled, The Cars. This is a fantastic album. Like I said, AM radio embraced the two singles. FM radio seemed to play the hell out of everything else on this album, including All Mixed Up and Moving in Stereo and Good Times Roll. This is the 2 CD deluxe edition that has a bonus disc with bonus material. The Cars, 1978 classic. Do I want to say power pop? Do I want to say new wave? It's just everything. It really is. It seemed to lean towards a heavier sound, a more rock sound, which is why it was embraced by FM radio. But everybody loved the Cars. Everybody, even the cool kids who didn't love anything that was popular, loved the Cars. So that was 1978. Now, of course, I love the Cars. I thought the Cars were great. I thought Roy Thomas Baker's production on that album was really good. But it was really the next album, 1979's Candy-O, that hooked me. And this hooked me hard. In fact, you can see right here. This has been here for, 2 years now? Cars Candy-O framed cover. It's not signed or anything. It's just because I love the album so much. Same with everything else here. It's just albums that really made a difference. This is actually one of my top 25 albums of all time. In fact, this was still produced by Roy Thomas Baker, and this was a different sound than the first album. The first album was rock with some new wave synthesizer, very creative keyboard work by Greg Hawkes, by the way. But this album sort of balanced everything. This sort of brought everything up. It brought rock, it brought avant-garde, it brought new wave, it brought electronic. It was just a fantastic album. And this, of course, has Let's Go, It's All I Can Do, Got a Lot on My Head, Dangerous Type. Fantastic. Again, another album that AM radio took to a couple singles, and FM radio just played the heck out of. Everybody seems to know every song off the first two albums. This is the deluxe edition that has bonus material. Yay! Then, of course, came their third album. I don't know if it was the stress of coming up with the third album in as many years, or maybe being burnt out by being on the road and promoting things. But Panorama continued the Candy-O sound, but it was darker. It had more depth, maybe a little more haunting. But this was actually a fantastic album. Not as bright and poppy as Candy-O, but fantastic. And of course, let me see here, like Touch and Go, Misfit Kid, were big hits off this, and FM radio picked up on it as well. So Panorama, the title track, of course, great. It's just a great album. Again, it wasn't Candy-O, but nothing can be Candy-O. You know what I mean? So 1981 brought Shake It Up. This sort of readdressed the situation, recalibrated the sound. It still had that depth and slight darkness that Panorama had, but it brought the joyful factor back into the mix. It was more upbeat. Of course, Shake It Up and Since You're Gone and I'm Not the One. You know, of course, I'm naming songs that are slower, except for Shake It Up. But it's still a fantastic album. This is the deluxe edition with bonus material. Definitely a must-have for your collection. But then they disappeared for about 3 years. I think, after touring. After that, they got rid of Roy Thomas Baker as a producer, and they switched to Mutt Lange. Now, 1984 rolls around, and guess what comes out? That's right, Heartbeat City. This was a huge, huge record. Problem was, okay, Okay, I know a lot of you got turned on to the band at this point. Now, the first album may be their most popular, but this was the most commercially successful album of their career. So many songs came from this that everybody knows. You know, the MTV generation really pushed the band with this album. This album had, of course, Drive, which is just a beautiful ballad, but it also had Magic. It had You Might Think. It had Hello Again. Lots of great songs on it. But here's the deal. It was produced by Mutt Lange, and it sounds like a Ric Ocasek solo album with a lot of input from Mutt Lange and guest appearances by members of the Cars. Of course, Ben Orr sang Drive, one of his greatest vocals. He's a great vocalist to begin with. But it seemed to lack the Cars. It seemed to be more keyboard-oriented. Of course, there was a lot of Greg Hawkes on there, which is fine, fantastic. But it seemed that the heart and soul of the band, the feel of the first 4 albums didn't really transfer to this album. They seemed to be great songs, and the album sounded great for 1984, but it's actually the most dated of their albums. It really is. I mean, the sound of the album is definitely 1984. Drive, I think, still stands up today, but everything else is, oh, that's so 80s. It's a great album, don't get me wrong, because this album turned a lot of people onto the Cars. Then they went back and bought the other albums, hopefully. But this is really a landmark album for them because it was a commercial success, has a lot of their most popular songs, but it was far from being their best album. Then 1985 comes around. They're not back in the studio recording a new album, so Elektra puts out something called The Cars' Greatest Hits. Now, the album featured a song called Tonight She Comes, which to me is what Heartbeat City could have been. Tonight She Comes sounds like it was probably recorded at the same sessions, but it just had so much more life, so much more joy. There was just so much going for it. And really, it encapsulates the feel of Heartbeat City, but it's just so much better than that album. I know that's blasphemy, so I apologize. But it took another 2 years after Greatest Hits before Door to Door came out. Now, Door to Door was back to the Cars being an edgy rock band. It was heavy. It was crunchy. The balance, again, was back to rock and less of the keyboard stuff, although there's still plenty of keyboards on the album. But it was just a more of a band album. And it just sounded like the band were just firing on all cylinders. Great songs like You Are the Girl, Leave or Stay, Coming Up You, Strap Me In. I bought this the day it came out. And the minute I heard it, I said, this is what I've been waiting for the Cars. This is, in my opinion, the best album since Candy-O. And I knew that this album was going to be a big, big hit. And guess what? I was wrong. This album was critically panned, and it was a commercial bomb, apart from You Are the Girl, which got airplay on MTV. It was a horrible video, by the way. But this album just sort of stiffed, and the band broke up in 1988, and that's all that we heard from the Cars. Of course, Ric Ocasek went solo. Ben Orr went solo. Greg Hawkes did some solo stuff and then played with other people. Elliot Easton put out a solo album. And that's kind of all that we thought we were going to hear of the Cars. Of course, Ocasek started producing as well. In the year 2000, Ben Orr died of pancreatic cancer, which we all thought was essentially the end of any chance of a Cars getting back together. And that was true up through the year 2011, when the Cars came back with Move Like This, their first album without Ben Orr, but it does feature the 4 surviving band members. This was a great album, as all the Cars albums are great. In fact, I put this above Heartbeat City, by the way. And this is a fantastic album. It sounds like exactly what it was. Ric Ocasek wrote some songs for a solo album and felt that they sounded more like Cars songs, so he called the other guys, and they all came in and recorded a brand new album. It's definitely a great addition to their back catalog, and I would recommend it if some of you never picked this up. Definitely get it. Move Like This was the final Cars album. with the recent death of Ric Ocasek. That definitely puts an end to the band. And, you know, a lot of people are going to say, oh my gosh, Spaz, you never mentioned the group The New Cars, featuring 2 members of the Cars and 2 members of Utopia, plus Prairie Prince on drums. Yeah, there's a reason, because they aren't the Cars. But before I go, I want to show you a couple other things. Now, the Cars put out plenty of collections. Most of them were, you know, little Warner Brothers cheapo collections that ended up at like Target and Best Buy and Walmart and stuff. But there were, you know, a 2 CD compilation called Just What I Needed that came out on Rhino. And there were some other collections, but probably the best single disc collection you're going to get is Moving in Stereo, which actually is a career spanning compilation, because it does include at least a track from Move Like This. And there's a couple rarities on there as well. So you're definitely going to want to check that out. And then finally, now, as you may have noticed, all the Cars CDs that I showed were deluxe editions, apart from Door to Door, which is my 3rd favorite album behind Candy-O and the first album. But this is actually available digitally remastered in a box set called the Elektra Years, which contains their 6 albums, as you'll see here. Contains all those. Now, these do not have bonus tracks like the deluxe editions. So if you like just the straight albums with nothing bonus on them, this is absolutely essential to add to your collection. And they're all the mini LP sleeves. This is definitely worth it if you don't want to buy the remasters. I had to buy the remasters with the bonus tracks, but I had to keep the box set because this is the only way to have Door to Door digitally remastered. Anyway, that's it. I appreciate you hanging out. I know some of you won't agree with my assessment of Heartbeat City, but that's okay, because this is my video. You can make your own CD Junkie video. And but still, please, if you haven't purchased any of the Cars albums, or you just have a best of, go back and buy the studio albums. You know, start with the first album, Candy-O. I mean, just move down the line. Definitely don't ignore Door to Door. It is a great album. Anyway, that's it for me here. I appreciate you hanging out. Until the next time, my name is Spaz, and I'm a CD Junkie.